Hi, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk It. In today's video, we're going to discuss on the concept of whether life is predestined. And today we have three wonderful guests. We have
Felipe.
Felipe, where are you from?
I'm originally from Brazil, but I've been living here in the US for about 10 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining my video. And I have
Chiamaka.
Chiamaka, where are you from?
I'm Nigerian.
Nigerian.
Yes.
Thanks for joining my video.
You're welcome.
And we have Sophia. Sophia, where are you from? I'm from right here in Miami.
Good to have you.
You're an indigene.
Yes.
Okay, so we're in your city or hometown.
Yes, you're my hometown.
Okay, thanks for joining my video.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So let's kick off. On today's topic, we're going to talk about predestination. So sometimes things happen in life, and somebody will say it is made to happen, or it's that is supposed to happen, or it has been destined to happen. What does it mean when somebody say that something is meant to happen or be in that way?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I guess, yeah, when someone says like this, something is meant to be, it's like, whatever circumstances like have existed out, like, it's kind of like a butterfly effect sort of thing. It's like no matter what happened, it could only happen this way. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I kind of want to expand on what he's saying. Like, all the events that happened previously all could only lead up to one circumstance, and that is the current events that you are experiencing then. You know, like it almost feels like it lined up perfectly, and we have no way to really know
Yeah.
if that is the case or not.
Yeah. So does it mean that it is in a situation of cause and effect? Amaka?
Well, let's start with when we say that something is made to happen.
Yeah.
So we're not really sure, We can really travel into the future to tell that, everything we've done like is a product of like some sort of like algorithm that already been programmed in the past, right? And we don't know beyond what we really know now. We're just, our minds are so limited. So I'm kind of a little bit confounded. I'm confused a bit, but I'd usually tilt towards things happen because of our actions, because of our deeds. I don't know if they are made to, but if we're talking about predestination in terms of if our actions, if our genetic makeup, if our environment culminate in what happens in our current outcome, then yes.
Okay. Then how can we now define destiny, one's destiny, in terms of predestination? Like, how can anybody put a definition to destiny?
I guess a predetermined set of outcomes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And earlier you mentioned cause and effect, like if cause and effect has anything to do with it. And I think it has everything to do with this concept of predestination. We can only imagine, for example, if we're at a pool table and you hit a ball, that it's going to move in a certain trajectory. And there's no other way we could imagine it, because the set of laws in nature force that to happen.
So, from what she's explaining, we can say that it's more of physical and, can we say biological?
Yeah, it's more of our human efforts. It's more of our human attempts or actions. It's not the idea. I don't know if you're also referring to the idea that there's some sort of like deity somewhere who controls these things. Is that you're also referring to that idea?
No, not completely, because
Okay.
I think, like, more than anything, I do think it's more of a two-set kind of problem. I think human action has a very, very big role in things rolling out the way they do. But I also think that at the same time, all the events previously still kind of inform us of the choices we're going to make. So we cannot completely rule out the fact that maybe our actions were also affected by a history that
Yeah.
may even be unknown to us.
Okay, with this, let me ask Felipe. Um, from all this description of predestination, can we say that if somebody can change their destiny by their course of action, was that destiny that was changed actually a destiny?
Yeah, I think that's what we were getting at, which is like destiny isn't really a thing because it's what you do that defines you.
Exactly.
So let's say, you were born in an environment that's, adverse to what you want to do. If you break out of that, someone could say it was your destiny, but also it's not like it was certain in any way, right? Like a lot of people that have had the same dream could not have accomplished that, even though that was also their presupposed destiny,
Yeah.
right? So I don't think we can say that destiny is a thing. I think that, like Sophie was saying, it's a mixture of, your own actions, but also everything that came before you, because if we're not born in a vacuum that we can choose to do whatever we want, and
Yes.
it's kind of, yeah, like where you grow up, with who you grow up, where you're educated or anything.
It's a matter of nature, nurture, controversy.
Yeah, I guess it's more like it does depend on what you want to do, but also outside of that, there's a lot more that constricts you, And so the matter is of breaking out of whatever is constricting you. That can't be predestined. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I have a look. Yeah, so yeah, in addition to what he said, I like to see destiny from, the etymology of the word destiny, destination, like your end point, kind of like where you'd finally get to. And that could be different points in your life, and that could also be like at the end of your life, whichever way. So I like to see that idea in two ways, right? How people see it generally. People like to say, oh, we have a predestined destination. And people like me like to think that we have a destination that actually fostered by what I do and randomness of life.
Yeah.
Right. So I like to see destiny in two ways. The way I mean, I don't agree with the way people see it, but people see it that way, that there is a predestined destiny.
Yeah.
And then I also like to see from my own way, which is that our destiny eventually becomes like it's a product of what we've done and how random life chooses to, engage with us.
Okay. Taking it from how you disagree with other people way of thinking about the destiny, knowing that in some cultures, let me say in Miami, I don't know how they perceive it, but referring to Amaka, who is from Nigeria, some Nigerians, we believe that everybody have their destiny. Somebody, you may even see a child growing up and they will say that this child is destined to be rich. I don't know. So, and somebody, you may also see that in terms of marriage, they will say, oh, their family lineage that they normally don't last in marriage. So now, I want to ask this question. Do you think that the concept, Amaka, the concept of this predestination can make somebody remain in an unpleasant or unfavorable relationship, thinking that it is meant to be?
You can go first.
I think that is definitely the case, and I think that we've seen that with a lot of people. A lot of people here in America are definitely influenced by their own beliefs, a lot of religious beliefs that I know they believe in predestiny, and sometimes that may lead you to not even pursue a life that you want. And that's the biggest problem, I think, with the concept of destiny and predetermination, that you kind of settle for a status quo instead of maybe looking for something better because you think that the current circumstance is what was meant to be.
Yeah. So I agree with what you said. To also add to it, like people need to open their minds to the role that our what's it called, our genetic and biological makeup also play in this whole conversation around destiny? So, like you mentioned, family history. You mentioned, I mean, I mean, I don't know neuroscience very well, but I know that some kinds of behaviors are kind of like what's it called, fostered genetically, right? And I also believe that people also become their own person as a result of the random assortment of genes at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So if you put all these things together, you find that in as much as to a large extent, history, by history I mean genetic history, even normal social history, could affect like people's present today, and to a very large extent, if they don't keep their minds open and understand that these things actually, how do I put it, if they don't keep their minds open, that they could be largely affected by these kinds of worldviews.
Or I have to make myself who I want to be.
Exactly, or I have to make myself who I want to be. They might be entrapped. Like, I mean, I've seen cases because I'm Igbo. So, and we have this worldview, this predestination, this destiny worldview, where people kind of like shrink themselves so much because they've been told, oh, this is what it was like, our family history, this is what our family history is, and then they just think like, oh, we cannot make it out of this place, it's just going to be this way. And then you also see in the midst of this kind of people who are really really pertinent, people who are really really hard-headed, that open their minds to understanding that there's a lot that could come out of life. So irrespective of family history, irrespective of the worldviews that people hold, they are able to a large extent, determine their own outcome.
Yeah. Okay, Maka, let me move to Felipe. Felipe, although you said you did not, that you have stayed here for 10 years,
Yeah.
but I would like to know, in terms of this relationship marriage, because in the Christian point of view, marriage is normally till death do us part, right?
Yeah.
And many people may be in this marriage with the concept that it is this my husband or this my wife is who God has destined me to marry. And even if it's going astray, they remain there. Are there situations like this in Brazil, even from your mom telling stories?
I mean, yeah, I know that at least here, as far as I know, like divorce is pretty common. So at least it seems like there isn't like a very strong belief of that here. But in Brazil, I mean, I'm not so knowledgeable about if people, have that sort of tie to, something greater that stops them from leaving bad situations. I guess that's an interesting question. I don't really know.
Okay.
Like how
It's
it
an
is over there.
assignment that you can go back.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have something to say about that?
Yes, I mean, I can say that, I mean, my family actually did come from Cuba, but like many people in Miami. And my grandmother and my grandfather grew up in Cuba their whole lives. And I know for a fact that my grandmother stayed until my grandfather died. They stayed married, even though my uncle and aunt and mother would have preferred that they divorced at some point, maybe once they were already adults and everything, because I know that their relationship was not great. I don't know the full extent of it, but I know that it was a very rocky relationship. So I at least know that amongst an older generation, for sure, that was the case. Like people thought they had to stay married with that commitment, especially if they already had kids. A lot of people keep that as a reason to stay married as well.
All right, thank you. That will bring us to dive into the concept of, it's kind of funny though. Let me say in developing countries, young girls, let me say within the age of 15 years, young boys, they are trying sex for the first time. They don't know preventive measures. And eventually, accidents happen, they get pregnant. Because of the cultural belief, religious belief, in these developing countries, they may tend to say, okay, don't abort the baby. Or the young girl may not even know that ways to go about to remove the pregnancy. But likewise, in a more developed country where young girls or boys of 15 to 18 years, they already know about these contraceptive measures. And situation of accident happening, they can even go and terminate this pregnancy.
Depending on the state you're in the US.
Okay, depending on the state you are in the US. So now, these two scenarios happen in two different countries. Is it predestined? So, can we say that the socio-economic status of a country influences predestination from this story I have just told?
Honestly, for me, I mean, every factor play a role in where you end up,
Okay.
right? Every factor play a role in what becomes of you, right? The only thing I don't agree with is that someone has programmed your life to be a certain way. But if you're talking about the environment I grew up in, the choices I made, what else? Just every other socioeconomic or political factors culminating in what I become. I believe 100%.
Okay, because in some situations, let me say, in the decision of keeping the baby, they will say, "Oh, it's destiny. It's her destiny." You know.
Yeah, I think that like, I think it's an interesting, the question of like socioeconomic factors plays a big role in like figuring out destiny, because it's like, uh, you could have, in a developing country, you could have a baby that like it might not be beneficial for you to have in that moment, and obviously like you'd be seeking, a way of not having it. But if you're here in the United States and you didn't want to have a kid, but I don't know where I'm going with this. Can we cut? I'm like,
No, keep going now. Go.
So I definitely think that socioeconomic factors play a big role in someone's destiny, you can say. And I think on the topic of pregnancy, child planning, family planning, China is a very good example because they had the one child policy, and because of many social norms and different factors, many girls were aborted selectively. But besides that, the one child policy was put in place as a form of population control, and actually it didn't even apply to the minority ethnicities in the country. It only really applied to the Han Chinese in China. So in that case, I think it's a very pragmatic look at how socioeconomic factors affect people's upbringing and destiny. And now we see them as a more developed country after they did put in these population controls. But then you look in the United States as well, and someone that is very, very rich here can have a child very, very young selectively. Then they can support the child entirely. Whereas maybe even in the same country, someone of the same age has that child and it completely ruins their life.
So
Okay, 1 minute.
economic status. Okay.
1 minute. Like you mentioned something like, so this child in the developing country deciding to have this baby, you asked a very crucial question, which is it destiny that they had this baby?
Is it destiny that one will get pregnant and terminate it, that she's not meant to have the baby at that stage, and the other one is meant to get pregnant and keep it?
So, which brings us to your idea of destiny, because we need to understand what you understand as destiny, so we can answer this question effectively.
What I understand as destiny, just like what she explained, is based on one's action. But I'm asking this question because it's not just based on my own definition of destiny. I'm asking because in cultural basis, people believe that this is my destiny. And once they believe that this is their destiny, they act in certain ways not to change, even if they're in a very bad situation. They act in ways not to change it.
So you're talking about a predestined destiny.
Yes.
Okay. In that regard, someone in a developing country like Nigeria having a baby as a result of a predestined destiny to me seems somewhat laughable, right? The reason why I think is very laughable is because at the end of the day, it's choices. It's choices that we make. You're having a baby because of either a choice you made or a choice people around you made, or a choice like the culture makes for you without you even being a party to it, because it's cultural worldview,
Okay.
right? So at the end of the day, it's either your choice or a secondary choice, which is choice that third party, fifth party, 20th party made for you, right? It's not really there, because if you there are people in Nigeria who also abort babies, right? So even if you abort the babies, it
Yeah,
doesn't.
so the reason why we're bringing it into discussion is that in as much as you have your decision or you know what to do, sometimes people around you influence what you
Exactly.
think. So all these things will come together to also determine one's destiny or the
Exactly.
perception of this is my destiny or this is
That makes sense. That makes
I don't know
sense.
if you have
Yeah, I was gonna say actually, like I think it has to do a lot with like how people have an idealized conception of themselves or of how they should be. That's really not a lot of the time not correspondent to their actual like real life
Yeah,
in any
true.
way. Like someone might have like a very a perception of themselves that's like able to do a lot more than they might be able to in a
Yeah.
moment, and so it's like in the question of pregnancy, it's like if you have that idealized version that like you have to have a baby, you're never gonna actually question what you actually need in that moment, in terms of your own health, your own security and so on, which is like something that's not ideal. It's something that's strictly in the material world. It's only that it's something that like you can actually experience rather than kind of like always be striving towards, because that doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
Like we were talking before, it's your destiny is what you do.
Yeah.
It's not
what you do. It's not
what you think you're gonna do, because if you're acting in that manner, regardless, like, yeah, if you do succeed in achieving that idealized version of yourself, then you could say that it was meant to be. But if you don't achieve that, it was still meant to be.
Yeah.
If you achieve that, you will say it's meant to be.
Yeah.
Especially for people that maybe they are trying to let me get a job.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
eventually they
They
got
get
their
it.
ideal job
Yeah.
that actually is meant to be.
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
Which makes it so random, because there are people who also want the ideal job and don't get it.
exactly. Yeah,
Just, I think that some like predetermination takes away accountability
True.
from the individual. So
Yeah.
you can't say that it was your actions that got you to a certain place, but you also can't say that it was your actions that got you to a bad place. It
Yeah.
can be good or bad.
Yeah.
So when it comes to also morality, free will is very, very important, because predestination has a very big role in maybe people saying like, oh, it wasn't my fault. It
Yeah.
determined that I would do this.
Thank you.
that's what makes it
And
what
there
it
are
is.
several factors that could make it not be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Right. Sorry, Amaka.
Yeah, it's fine.
That will bring us to the end of it. But before we go, I would like us to, based on the conclusion that we have gotten to based on this topic, Sophia, what can you say to our audience on the idea of predestination?
I would say that it's still complicated. It's still complicated, and we haven't even gotten into all the different discussions that exist in this topic, because there's so much. So even after I've like read many things on predestination, even after having this conversation, I am still, I'm not certain whether we have free will, and I'm not certain if we're predetermined. But I do know that we have to act like we always do have free will. So that's how I feel about it.
So what I would, sorry guys. So what I would tell the audience is that in everything, keep an open mind. Really, I think is the third or the second question you asked about how the idea of predestined destiny can limit one's scope in life. That's actually true. It does limit people. You start seeing yourself a certain way. You start thinking of just the possibility of very strict and narrow outcomes for yourself. it is not ideal. Open your mind to the world. The world is our farm. You can farm as much as you want to. And I mean, coming from a slightly pessimistic person, be really hopeful. Be hopeful and be open-minded. I don't think there is any algorithm in heaven that has planned your life the way it will be. Like, it's your life, so you choose the way you live it.
Thank you, Emeka.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like don't assume that anything is predetermined. Don't assume that anything is meant to be. Put in the work for what you think is like the right thing to do, but don't also knock yourself if you don't get to like a point where you didn't like you thought you would be at and you're not there yet. It's all about what you do day to day, and eventually you probably become something that you're proud of just by doing it.
Exactly.
Thank you, Felipe, Sophia, and Amaka. And before we go, I would just like to say that to me, the concept of predestined life may be true, but not true because we are all confused. I will give an example with Sophia. Before this video, we were supposed to be three. Sophia was never in the picture. So it was now supposed to be Amaka and Felipe. But she came with Felipe and immediately we asked her, "Would you like to join us?" She said, "Okay," she doesn't mind. And now she is here. So if I ask the question, was it meant to happen? I don't know.
I would say it was meant to happen. I would say it was meant to happen because she brings so much intuitive and very insightful
In that
perspective.
way, we can give it 50-50 that there is something like predestination and there is nothing.
No, me, I'll keep an open mind. I don't know, honestly, I don't
With
know.
my example,
Really.
I would say because it's just like a puzzle that sometimes you have to put things in the right order.
Yeah.
You don't know how to put it, but as you are trying it, today I would say that it was try and error, right? And it worked for me. And her contributions, they are very wonderful.
Insightful,
Like a philosopher.
She's a philosopher, obviously.
So predestination 50-50, but don't believe that the adversity you are facing that you cannot do anything about it. You have to bring yourself out of any mess. Remember, nobody can do it for you.
Yeah.
It's not your destiny to be in that way. All right. Bye-bye.
That was a good one.
Yeah, that's fun.